The Super Bowl has come and gone this year, and what an event it was. It was the Swifty Bowl, it went into overtime, and it was the most watched Super Bowl of all time. According to Nielsen, at least 123.7 million TVs were tuned in to watch the Chiefs and Niners. And Taylor. And this NFL season set a new record, as 93 of the top 100 TV programs watched throughout 2023 were NFL games. So how did the NFL become the most watched event on TV? Welcome back to the How Did channel, where we answer the question, how did that happen? Before we dive into this one, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and hit that little bell too. And stay tuned throughout the video as we will be revealing interesting facts about football that you might not know. Oh, and if you have an idea about something you would like us to dig into how it happened, leave a comment after you watch the video to the end. Alright, here we go. So, to dig into how the NFL became the most watched thing on TV, we should delve into a bit of history of both football and television. American football is a sport derived from soccer and rugby. The first recorded football game was played on November 6, 1869, between two colleges, Rutgers and Princeton. 23 years later, on November 12, 1892, pro football was born when William Pudge Heffelfinger was openly paid $500 to play for the Allegheny Athletic Association against the Pittsburgh Athletic Club. From that point forward, more and more players began getting paid to play, and full professional clubs were born. In 1920, several club owners got together in Canton, Ohio, and decided to form a league and establish rules to gain control over bidding wars and the payment of college players. That league at first was called the American Professional Football Association. The name was later changed in 1922 to the National Football League as we know it now. The first year, the league had 14 teams representing multiple cities from the states of New York, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, and Illinois. Fun fact, many people think pro football first appeared in the state of Indiana when the Baltimore Colts moved to Indianapolis in 1984. Actually, Indiana boasted two of the original 14 teams of the league, the Hammond Pros and the Muncie Flyers. 7 years after the formation of the NFL, Philo Taylor Farnsworth, a 21-year-old inventor who had lived in a house without electricity until he was 14, first successfully demonstrated an electronic television in San Francisco on September 7, 1927. RCA, the company that dominated the radio business in the United States with its two NBC networks, invested $50 million in the development of electronic television. In 1939, RCA televised the opening of the New York World's Fair, including a speech by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was the first president to appear on television. On May 17, 1939, the first televised baseball game between Princeton and Columbia Universities was aired. Then, October 22, 1939, saw the first televised NFL game, a regular season matchup between the Brooklyn Dodgers and Philadelphia Eagles on Ebbets Field, home of Major League Baseball's Brooklyn Dodgers. So now let's look at the reasons why the marriage between television and the NFL has worked so well since that game in 1939. First, it was almost perfect timing. After World War II, people in the United States began purchasing television sets in droves. The number of television sets in use in the U.S. rose from 6,000 in 1946 to some 12 million by 1951. Then, in 1958, what many have called the greatest game ever played happened. The Baltimore Colts met the New York Giants in the NFL championship game in Yankee Stadium in New York. The setting was perfect. New York City, the epicenter of the financial world and big business. The hometown Giants with studs Frank Gifford and Sam Huff facing off against the Colts with their young gunslinger of a quarterback in Johnny Unitas. The Colts and their best offense in the league took a 14-3 lead into halftime. Then, the Giants came back and took the lead back. There were turnovers and sloppy play throughout the game. Then, the Colts drove down and tied it at the end of regulation. So it was the first NFL championship game to go into overtime. And the Colts drove down, and Alan Amici dove into the end zone from a yard out to give Baltimore the title. The country, with its newfound obsession with television, was tuned in. An estimated 45 million people viewed that game. And those who didn't heard about it the following morning in the office, as this game was the water cooler talk of the country. The back-and-forth swings of the game and the storylines of the players involved and the dramatic finish captivated the country. This game was not called the greatest game ever played merely because of the play on the field, but also because of the impact it had on the sport. The second reason that really helped boost the exposure of the NFL was the scheduling. Sunday afternoon was the perfect timing for this game, as well as the league in general. Also, Sunday afternoons in the fall and winter are when most people are home relaxing with their families. And now, with television being widespread throughout the country, people are tuned into what's on. And with just 3 national networks at the time, there was not much to choose from. So the most exciting thing on was easily the NFL. That aspect has continued to this day, along with the addition of prime-time games on nights such as Monday, Saturday, and Thursday. But the 1-game-per-week scheduling is perfect for the league. With the typical games on Sunday afternoon, fans have the whole week to talk about what happened, second-guess the coaching decisions, and then anticipate the next game. With all that recap time, all that build-up time, fans cannot help but watch the next game. A third reason the game has flourished on TV that many people don't realize, the U.S. federal government actually helped the league quite a bit when Congress made a decision in 1961 to allow sports leagues to negotiate their own collective television contracts. This let the NFL set up a system to share annual television revenue equally among all teams. Before then, big market teams like the New York Giants could earn 10 times as much money as small market teams like the Green Bay Packers, which gave the Giants much more cash to sign the best players. But by equally distributing the television revenue, in addition to sharing revenue from other sources such as merchandising and ticket sales, the league ensures that every team has the financial ability to compete on and off the field. The NFL's revenue sharing has maintained competitiveness across all teams and has helped the league avoid financial disparities faced by other sports that gave teams nearly insurmountable advantages. Other major sports leagues have modified their revenue sharing since 2000 to adopt systems more like the NFL's. All of this contributes to greater parity among teams, competitive games, and more teams in the playoff hunt each year, improving the game for fans, players, owners, and the league's broadcast partners. The fourth reason? The sport itself is very American. The game itself is all about conquering territory. The goal is to move the football until it is across the opponent's goal line. It is highly stylized warfare, and Americans tend to have a penchant for combat. Along with that, there is some degree of danger involved. Football players do suffer injuries. In fact, a study of 15 different sports conducted by the NCAA determined that football had the highest rate of injury of all the sports. A lot of Americans find danger exciting. Also, it is an extraordinarily complex game with strategies involved at multiple levels. For many of us, the complexity of the game is part of the appeal. It is the pinnacle of team sports. There are 22 players on the field for every play, and each of those players has a different responsibility. But the 11 players on each side must still work together in order for the team to succeed. There is an enormous amount of strategy involved. There are many different ways to score, and the number of points awarded varies. There are also many different ways to play defense. And every game is important. Both NBA basketball and NHL hockey play 82 games in a season. Major League Baseball has 162 games. But there are only 17 games in an NFL season, so losing one NFL football game is the equivalent of losing 5 NBA or NHL games, or 10 Major League Baseball games. The games are just very exciting, at least most of the time. A great many games at every level of play are decided by 7 points or less, and even those with a bit higher margin of victory can be very competitive and great fun to watch. At its core, the NFL is a sport of tribalism, with fans pledging allegiance to their favorite teams with unwavering loyalty. Whether it's the territorial loyalty to your local team, or it might be the legacy loyalty passed down through family. And there are also those bandwagon fans who latch on to the current successful team because they want to feel associated with a winning franchise and feel superior to fans of other teams. And each NFL franchise has its own unique identity and fan culture. This sense of belonging and camaraderie fosters a deep emotional connection between fans and their teams, driving them to tune in week after week to cheer on their beloved squads. A fifth reason is the innovation in sports coverage technology. Since that first game in 1939, broadcasters in the NFL have continued to innovate and push the limits of how television can enhance the NFL experience. Instant replay, initially used for just one play during the Army-Navy game in late 1963, soon would become ubiquitous for NFL broadcasts, especially when slow motion and freeze-frame capabilities were added and enhanced. Replay made games more entertaining. It provided a natural filler for the sport's many breaks in play, and could be used to highlight hard hits, battles in the trenches, great runs and catches, and other key plays. Broadcasters also use replay to better explain the game's nuances, creating greater fan awareness, understanding, and involvement. All of these reasons and more are why the NFL has become the most watched event on television year after year. Thanks for watching this episode of How Did That Happen? If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe. And clicking the notification bell means you'll get alerts when we answer the next question of How Did That Happen?